Yeah, and there's, again, a real risk that foreign researchers might not see these consequences of their actions, especially when you travel for a short time and then you leave. And thinking of those relationships, again, it's why I tend to work with people that I know.
So we discussed about part of data collection and research planning. In the part 2, we will continue to discuss about the dissemination, the risks, and the recommendation and the message that we want to share with other researchers. I'm from the community. They all know me. They are not intimidated to talk to me. But the power relation is that they are going to tell me everything. Which one I'm going to use, which one I'm not going to use is a difficult decision to make. And sometimes asking question, okay, I have the research question, the main research question that I want to know. To get that answer, I have to have tiny little follow-up question. But there are some questions that I should ask. But I know that it's going to trigger their trauma, re-traumatize them, because we have shared experience. So I couldn't ask. So most of the time, it's instead of coming for the solution or the finance, it's come up a question more, one I do data collection. And the other thing is that we have the shared experience, because I am the participant of the research community. And when we talk, I ask what happened, or how did you feel about it? What was your experience? And then they are gonna tell me, do you remember that day when we went to the hospital? Do you remember that time we had to move? Of course I remember, I was there. But when I am going to conduct research, to write or to interpret, I have nothing to quote. Should I just explain the whole event? Then that's not their words. It's all mine. It's a little bit the ambivalence, I'm the subject of the study and object of the study, and didn't really know what to do, which one I'm gonna quote. And there are some quotes that are useful, but there is no context. And if I give the context, but the context is me, I explaining a lot about it. So did you share that kind of experience?
Again, for me, it's different, and this is why we work well together, I think, because as a foreign researcher, I have the luxury of perceived ignorance in lots of settings. So often the people I speak with will tell me in a very generous way, in detail, about the kind of context that I need to understand. And that's incredibly helpful for research, because it means that you have a lot of that background detail that informs your research. Of course, though, there's always things that I will miss. And again, this is why working collaboratively for me is the only possibility of doing this kind of research. So we have our strengths and our advantages in different ways, and they work best together.
I mean, sometimes people would assume that if you do Burma research, the researcher is from Burma, or the researcher is from the community, is the best, right? She knows everything. But actually, it's the opposite, right? It's know everything doesn't mean I can write everything. I can't write everything, because I know everything because we share experience, we share every day. But as a researcher, it's these ethics and censoring. That's the tricky part.
That's it. I think it's about understanding the opportunities and the advantages of being an insider researcher, which are so rich and so important. But also recognizing the limitations that sometimes the difficult positions that sometimes puts you in, and the emotional connections that you share. And so again, working collaboratively, sometimes you can share that a little bit around a research group. I feel very strongly, risk. We all take risks in our research. In conflict settings, those risks are really acute. They're really important and significant. Those risks are not equally shared. And that's one thing I can do. I can use my own name to publish, for example. I come from an institution of immense privilege globally, the University of Cambridge. That name can sometimes be useful to amplify and to share and to draw attention to areas of work that we think that we would like some attention. It's important, though, that we also recognize where it's not advantageous to have attention or people's names used. Thinking of confidentiality, how visible, how readable people want to be in research is such an important consideration in relation to risk.
For me, the risk is that, of course, like my plan was to do research inside Burma, but then the conflict changed and everything's happened outside, like at the border. And everyone is with trauma. The research and the naming and everything is, of course, like when we do research, putting the name as the participant is always anonymity, always anonymous. But when conducting the research, they have the physical risks. Like if we do like participatory research, or if we even go and interview at a coffee shop or something, the physical risks, because most of the participants are illegal, so we couldn't do that. And the other thing is that the trauma, like that some questions could trigger them. But they are really strong people. Like our community, people are strong and loving. They will answer, they will do everything in the first day. But after you question them, that time they are all fine. But when they go back, they might be in bed, staying, not getting out of bed for like 2-3 days because that trauma, like all come back to talk about it, to experience it again. That is like the risks I'm more careful about. Because we know that, and it happens to me. Even when I ask and seeing that it's happening to them, it hurts.
Yeah, and there's again a real risk that foreign researchers might not see these consequences of their actions, especially when you travel for a short time and then you leave. And thinking of those relationships, again, it's why I tend to work with people that I know. Of course, that does expand, and I meet new people, and that's a wonderful part of the research as well. But it's really important to be sensitive to the impacts of our research. Again, a reason why I don't really conduct interviews anymore. It's not a good method for me to use. It doesn't help with those power imbalances. And it's the consequences of the trauma that people have experienced are too great to reproduce.
What kind of methods is useful for you?
I like workshop methods and arts-based methods. So working on something together, I find a really useful way, both as a way of generating something creative, but also as a method in itself to share conversation, to learn, to listen, to break down some of those hierarchies sometimes. Arts-based methods are wonderful. The arts in general are wonderful to allow us to see something new, to create something that perhaps we don't always have words for, and to share something together, to recognize that when I'm in a room with people I research with, I create a different dynamic than when you're in the room. And when we're in the room together, we create a different dynamic again. So I like methods that reflect that collective generation of ideas and sharing and learning. I work in education, so learning is always important to me, both as a subject of study but also as a consequence of the process of study.
I also use like workshop a lot because interviewing has been difficult, like asking question, shouldn't ask question because it hurts. And it's like very, very personal, like individual to individual. So I also use lots of workshops, but how I use is more of like participatory action research. I use mostly constructive journalism with the ethnography together. So using tools like ask them to draw or we have like cartoonists or artists, they can draw, and then ask them to do documentary, or like we sit together. I am one of the participants, sit together and started brainstorming the question, and then sometimes it's come up with interview, like media interview, sometimes it's come up at the feature article, sometimes it's become documentary, short video, that kind of thing. One time it's came up with a song. It was so beautiful. So I use these kind of method. It's not just for my comfort because it's so comfortable, not asking intimidating question, not to put them into difficult position they have to answer because they wait if I ask. It also helped with the trauma. because they can censor what question is not good for them, like they don't want to talk about, and they choose not to talk about, and it's on them. They lead. I am part of it. So that kind of thing that we do. Also, the other thing is that when we like do research, like one researcher come and conduct research, even if it is like 2 months or something project, after they leave, the participants are left with nothing. So using this participatory research, we are teaching them like the skills, how to conduct research, the ethics, using, like the comparison between different types of ethics, like journalism ethics and researcher ethics, that kind of thing. And after we finish the project, after we finish this research, they are still left with some skills. It's helpful. It's more like, I don't know, like we do research because we want to be useful. It's in a way, it's useful.
Exactly. I think that's coming back to that starting question of always asking ourselves, are we the right people to do this research? Is it the right time to do this research? And what can this research help us understand? Are all different dimensions of that question of, is this research useful? What does this research offer, as well as what it might take? And how is the balance worth it? I think that point is really important, and it's all the more important when we're working with communities who've experienced huge amounts of trauma and continue to experience disruption. Those different dimensions to conflict are hard to always anticipate in research. We can't always know what is triggering to different people, their different experiences. So exactly as you say, those opportunities for people to take control over their own narratives and the ways in which they want to participate, as well as learning something through the process, I think is really valuable.
Also like when we like write and share, right? Writing for me is, in a way, it is healing. But at the same time, the ambivalence is that why it is healing, because I have to write it down. Writing down is the suggested, recommended methods of psychiatry will give you. Yes, but at the same time, it's re-traumatizing, reliving. And when you're writing about I'm writing about the education, like how the school are bombed and how like being bombed and how students have to run away, no schooling. But at that day, you might hear there is airstrike somewhere. That's just reliving, re-traumatizing, living in that trauma again and again. So my dissertation is embargo. Nobody can read it. But still, like, we should share this kind of like diverse way of dissemination, diverse way of sharing as much as we can share, rather than just like writing like we were talking about before, right? This is a difficult thing for me to navigate, I find, because it's so important to share learning in accessible ways that benefit the participants and the people and the communities that you've been working with. To me, if we're not doing that in research, then our research is not useful. And it's important that our research is useful to the communities that we work with. But it's a difficult balance. For me, I'm expected to write and I'm expected to publish as part of my role as an academic at the university. So how I negotiate that tension of the expectation for me to write to an academic audience and the desire to make sure my research is accessible is a difficult one. I like to write in collaboration with people I work with. I like to write with my peers. I like to write with my colleagues. But again, we don't all share risk equally. And we don't all share benefits equally. I benefit from publishing in academic journals. I benefit in my academic reputation from sharing my work at international conferences, for example. Not everyone I work with can travel to those international conferences. Not everyone has the means or the funding, but also not everyone has the possibility with passports and visas. In one sense, I then am in a position of opportunity to represent our work to a different audience, to amplify that knowledge and share that learning with others. But in other ways, it also feels like something of a selfish position to share that work that has been a very collective endeavor, and I'm the only visible face to it. The same with writing. I can use my name freely when I write. Not everyone I write with can use their name in that way. And that the impact of using your name isn't always limited to the time period that you write in. So people that I have co-written with before,
have used their original names in their writing with me, they might not now choose to use their original name, but that has been published widely. So it's a very difficult balance to find. And to me, the only way to navigate it is to keep talking about it, to keep sharing those thoughts about what we're comfortable with, what we're not comfortable with. And that means research takes a long time to build that kind of trust.
So can you use pseudonym of them for publication?
Yeah, in some contexts, yes. It's difficult in some academic environments to use pseudonyms. Again, it's perhaps more advantageous to have an established academic whose name you can use with a partner who might use a pseudonym, because a lot of academic journals, for example, ask for an institutional affiliation. Navigate that. But then again, sometimes I feel like I'm benefiting from using my position in ways that don't reflect the shared labor of the work.
I would suggest, that's what we trying to do to give the platforms to those who can only use pseudonyms, or we always hear that these participants sometimes in different discords we hear them as victims or burden or the unvoiced or something, that voicing the unvoiced, that phrase itself is the ambivalence, right? Itself has ambivalence. At some point they're talking about we have to voice the unvoices, but at the same time it's muting those voices, because I will speak on behalf of you. So instead of doing that, we could trying to find platforms where they can come and speak together, and that's this collaborative work. Maybe we might need to fight the institutions to get acknowledgement for these kind of pseudonym name without institutional affiliation. That would be a long fight, but maybe we could try. Okay, shall we finish?
I think so.
So this is our ambivalence positionalities of the researchers.
Thank you so much for sharing the conversation with me.
Thank you, Liz, for coming. Thanks for engaging with our episode on researchers' positionality in conducting qualitative and ethnographic research in the context of conflicts. The Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify links can be found under the video. Please leave the comments on your thoughts on the matter that we discussed. In the next episode, we will discuss the concept of Zomia as a refuge with an anthropologist, a PhD candidate from the University of Hawaii, Manoa. Thank you so much.